Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of And Action Filmmaking Podcast. It's another Tuesday, and we're happy to bring you some kind of light, a little bit of a light episode this week. Mike and I like to keep the topics fresh, and we said, what haven't we really done in a while? We haven't really done good old fashioned on-set dust up stories. And as you know, once in a while, actors are like people, right? And sometimes people just aren't going to be in a great mood, or maybe they woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day, or maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe you have like a legitimate creative situation that needs to be worked out. There's a lot that can go on that makes for an unruly actor. And today we're going to go through a few different scenarios where both Mike and I have encountered such situations where we have an actor that you might even love him. I mean, here's the deal. A lot of these situations, it's like sometimes I've had dust ups with actors that I really love and the whole thing's going great. And then one day just something kind of rubs them the wrong way. And you find yourself in the midst of a verbal fix. And hopefully it doesn't ever get physical, Mike. But that's what's going on today, Mikey. How you doing? How's your week going?
So far, so good, Tommy. It's only Tuesday, but Tuesday's an interesting day because it's not quite the beginning of the week. I guess it's the third day of the week if you count Sunday as the first. And you still have time to make things happen. So Tuesday, so far, so good, buddy.
Well, that's why I kind of like doing this show on a Tuesday. It's a little bit of positivity. It's not quite Monday, but there's still hope for the week. You can still get your shit together and make something happen for yourself. So let's get into it, Mike. Well, actually, before we get into it, I don't know if our And Action listeners have seen it, but today is a big day in the world of The Florist, which is my new web series that I've been working on. I'm very happy to say that the trailer is out, Mike. The official trailer came out this morning. You can find it on my social media pages. It's on my Instagram at Tom DiNucci. It's on, and more importantly, if you haven't checked it out yet, it's on my Patreon page, and that's where the show's actually gonna eventually be released. We're doing something new and unique. We're self-distributing, Mike. We're putting this bitch right out onto Patreon.
I enjoyed the trailer. I saw it on Instagram shortly before we went on the show. So I saw Fred Sullivan is playing a kind of a dirty florist. Is that okay to say? He's a florist with kind of a secret, a crime syndicate type of thing, and you're playing his son.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's a dirty florist, but he is, in fact, a contract killer. The difference is he only kills bad people. Little bit of a Dexter vibe there. It's one of these situations where I play a depressed 30-something who still lives at home with his dad, and my whole life thought my dad was just this friendly, happy-go-lucky florist working at the flower shop. And then it is relieved to me, or I should say, it is revealed to me through kind of an odd set of circumstances that my dad is in fact a contract killer and has been killing people for the most part. And now, of course, for the most part, every son wants to follow in their father's footsteps, right? You want to maybe take on this. So that's kind of where we set the story. And so basically learns the first time that his seemingly pleasant, affable dad, a guy who's got quite a few bodies under him, Mike. And then, of course, my involved in the action.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's a very in-depth story, and I saw that you had a few. Tommy Dreamer, the professional wrestler that you've worked with several times, is in this series, and it looks. Did I see Scout, our friend, musical Scout, in the trailer? Was I imagining that, or did I see her in there too?
You were not imagining that. Scout is most definitely in this movie. Scout Lyons plays sort of like my gamer best bud. Again, like I said, my character's pretty bummed out, pretty depressed at this stage in the game, and Scout is really the character Scout plays is really his only friend, and they've never even met each other. They just know each other from playing video games online.
Right. Well, buddy, that's
We're getting some complaints here. It looks like we have a little bit of a laggy stream, so I'm going to try and figure out what that is while we get into unruly actors. But Mike, you kind of go ahead and do your thing.
yeah. I was going to say I noticed that a little bit. I don't know if you have extra windows open on your end, Tommy. Sometimes that can affect the streaming power. If it continues to be like this, maybe we should just reboot because it might be hard for our audience to watch. But yeah, I mean, here I am in Florida, Tommy. It's a nice day. It's 79 degrees outside today. We actually had a and action enthusiast come down to Florida, and I got to see our buddy Kim Kaling was in town this past weekend. Her daughter had a major cheerleading competition in Florida, and Kim came down to support that endeavor, and we met up at the Fountain of Youth, Tommy, where we both got fountained of youth. So hopefully Kim's, I'm sure she's back in Rhode Island right now and doing well.
All right, I just changed a few settings, so hopefully that fixed the lag that we had. But let's get into it, guys. So, unruly actors, it's something that we've all had to deal with. And there could be a number of reasons that kind of get us into these situations. Like I said in the beginning, actors are people just like any other people. Sometimes you're going to get them on their best day. Sometimes you're going to get them on their not so best day. And we're going to talk about some strategies on just how to make it all make sense and how to kind of, I guess you could say, charm the snake a little bit, tame the lion, and still get what you got to get. Because let me tell you, I've seen it happen firsthand. If your lead actor or even one of your supporting actors isn't in the right headspace, it can ruin your entire production day. It can really, I mean, one bad day, especially a lot of these movies that I'm working on, we're talking small schedules, short schedules. We're talking like a 10-day shoot, an 11-day shoot, even on a 15-day shoot. If you have one bum day on a 11, 12-day shoot, you're kind of fucked. You don't really have much of a safety net when you're dealing with such a small schedule. So a bad day can really jam you up. So today we're going to be talking about some ways to avoid the bad days and how to kind of bring your actor back to life.
Well, that's a great point, Tommy. You're right. I mean, people don't realize sometimes that even the most high budget productions are on a super strict schedule. 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. You've made movies 2 weeks. When I made an independent feature film, buddy, we had 11 shoot days, and it's tough. And so sometimes these emotions can come to the surface. And let's be honest, sometimes actors in particular, if you're going to be in the spotlight, if you're going to want a camera on your face the whole time, there might be some ego issues there with some actors, and also vulnerability. A lot of times actors are putting themselves and their emotions on the line. So you mix that with perhaps a need to have, look at me, don't look at me type of mixed feelings about a lot of stuff from actors. All these things can be ingredients in the recipe for emotional situations. So what do you as our buddy Cody Rhodes says there, buddy, what do you want to talk about? Let's hear a story of some unruly actors.
Well, one thing right off the bat, before we get into a specific story, let's talk about like one great thing you can do to avoid it. Like I find that actors really love to do what's called piling on. They love to pile on their complaints. And what I mean by that is if an actor shows up to set and let's say they don't get their sides right away and their breakfast isn't delivered on time or it's not quite right. Oh, and their wardrobe maybe isn't steamed or maybe it's not waiting for them in the trailer. They're going to use all these little things and collect them up and start using them as ammunition. So if they're upset about one thing, maybe, I don't know, maybe their pickup was 2 minutes late. That'd be one thing, but now the pickup's a little late, the wardrobe's not in the trailer, and their breakfast is fucked up. Now they're in a bad fucking mood, and now you got to deal with that. So, like one thing to avoid, and I know it sounds crazy, but make sure that you're doing all the little things and give the actor as few elements to complain about, as funny as that sounds, as possible. So kind of be prepared and anticipate the shit that that actor is going to need. Because, like I said, man, and I've seen it happen. Like, if you don't get your actor something as simple as, oh, I requested big sides and these are little sides, that could throw them off, you know? And just to back it up, if you don't know what sides are basically every day on set, whether you're a production assistant or whether you're the director, you're handed a set of sides, which is basically just another way of saying the script pages for that day, everything that you plan on shooting that day, as well as the top is called the call sheet, which has a basically like a batting lineup of all the scenes that need to be shot that day, as well as a roster of all the both actors and crew people on set that day. So it's a very important piece of information. The sides are kind of one of those last things that in this world of everything's on your phone, sides are still something that it's important to have hard copies of on set. And I really like that because people still, paper is still necessary. God damn it, in one way, shape, or form. So I like a nice set of sides, but some actors, if they have trouble seeing or they just want to be able to highlight and write notes, they'll request bigger sides, meaning normal sides are kind of like just a little bit bigger than like an 8x10 card, really. They might want the full page. And if you don't provide them with that, that's going to be like that one little thing that might set them right the fuck off. So one thing that I've noticed about actors and way to, a little preventative medicine, if you will, just make sure you have all the little things in check so that they don't have shit to flip out on right off the bat. Because I guarantee you, they're gonna try to pile on. They're gonna try and combine the things that are pissing them off and read you the riot act on why they're not happy.
Hey, Tommy, everything you just described, I'll just come out and say it, buddy. I was actually in a situation similar, pretty much dead on what you described, and I was the unruly actor because we were filming this kind of student project in the middle of a hot Rhode Island summer, and on one of the opening days of the shoot, there wasn't a whole lot of snacks provided. You can call it crafty if you want, but there just really was nothing as far as beverages or food for everybody. So when that day concluded, I talked to the student director and kind of smarten them up a little bit. Like, hey, look, if you're going to ask people to come out here in this heat wave, 90+ degree weather, people don't have access to their own food and supplies. So that's kind of on you to supply something for everybody. And I even went through and kind of explained, like, for me, I like, Gatorade on a day like today when like that might be helpful for the nutrients that you need to replenish yourself on a hot day. And I went through this whole explanation of this stuff, buddy. And then when I got to the set, I think they had like a bag of donuts from, like the frosted Entenmann's donuts, like in a fucking bag from 7-Eleven. And,
Yikes.
and that was about it. And that just kind of set me off. And, I was kind of a ticking time bomb from there for the rest of the day. And then there was a situation where one of the students had like their kid sister in the project, and she had just worked a long day at a fast food restaurant, teenage person. And she was just kind of saying how she was hungry, and there didn't seem to be any effort from anybody to satisfy this young person. And I kind of went into angry actor mode, Tommy. Like, I got really pissed off, and I'm just like, hey, it's not like I didn't tell you what would have been good here. Like, I specifically went through it, and not only that, Tommy, they agreed to get the stuff. Once I had told them before after the previous shoot, when I smartened them up a little bit, they had given me oh yeah, Mike, that sounds good. Thanks for telling us. They went through that whole lie. And then we show up and nothing's been improved. And now you've got another hot day where not only am I in a bad mood because
You're an unruly actor, Mike.
yeah, but I think in this case, buddy, I had reason to be. And so, long story short, Tommy, I ended up leaving, which was good. And I never worked with any of those people again. And maybe I was the bad guy in their mind. Maybe I was the unruly actor in their mind. But in my opinion, I was justified and they were a bunch of hacks. So, I mean, I
Well, the
think,
bottom line is this: if it sounds like they probably didn't have the money to feed people. Sounds like it was probably some low budget bullshit student film. And here's my opinion on that. It's okay to have a low budget bullshit student film. That's fine. In fact, that's where we all cut our teeth. However, don't fucking do it if you can't at least put food in people's mouths, because there's no excuse for that shit. Because let's be honest, it cost. How big was the crew? What are we talking? Cast and crew combined?
Oh,
We're
like
talking 10 people.
we're talking 8 people, maybe 8 or 9.
We're talking 8 or 9 people. To feed 8 or 9 people for a day, you're talking what? Maybe $100, maybe $150 worth of snacks. And I hate to say it, and I might sound ugly for saying this, but if you can't afford $100 to $150 to feed the people that are around you, helping you make your vision, don't do it. Do something else. Go find something else to do. And I know what you're saying, like, well, we don't have the money. We're just kids. Well, get on fucking GoFundMe and raise $100 to buy some fruit snacks and some waters. You know what I mean? Like, ask your parents, ask your uncle, find somebody, go canning outside of a supermarket. Do whatever the fuck you need to do to gather up 5 $20 bills and make sure that everybody has a little something to snack on while you're shooting your short film. That's my rant on that. But yes, see, that's a situation, Mike, where you probably were justified to be an unruly actor. Let's get back into situations where it's not so justified. So let's talk about a fun one. Let's kick it off with a fun one. A little something I call substance abuse.
Okay.
Sometimes you're going to deal with actors that are fucked up on set. And
Mm.
I know that's a not so great thing. And I'm only going to be talking about a couple of people, one who I don't give a fuck with, whether I work with them or not, ever again in my life. In fact, if you told me that I didn't have to work with them again, I'd jump up and down and say hallelujah. And the other, unfortunately, this person's deceased. They're no longer with us, so I don't mind telling the story. And I don't want it to look like I'm speaking poorly on the dead, but the reality is, this is a situation that I had to encounter in at the time, which was my biggest movie ever, Vault. So I'm going to tell a couple of little fun stories. One, we'll take it back to the set of a movie called The Mick and the Trick, which I worked on, where I directed an actor by the name of Peter Green, who, if you don't know Peter Green was in The Usual Suspects. He played the villain in The Mask. Peter Green had a really budding career in the mid 90s, even into the late 90s. And there was a chance, there was a shot, there was a moment in time when Peter Green probably could have been a movie star by every sense of the word. I mean, the guy's super talented, very good actor, handsome guy, badass look. And unfortunately, he's one of these guys who let his addiction get the best of him. And I'm sure reliability became an issue for him over time. And I think that's why Peter Green never really, got to the top. I think he had a moment where he could have been there. I mean, we're talking 1994, you're starring opposite Jim Carrey in The Mask, which is at the time one of the biggest movies out there. To go from that to where he is today, it's a big fall from grace. And you can't imagine that. And you have to imagine that a lot of that has to come from years and years of unreliability and the kind of behavior that I witnessed on set when I directed him.
Oh,
Now, Mike, you had a little something to do with this movie. You were on the set of Making the Trick, and it was a small movie, and meaning the budget was probably under $250,000, somewhere in that range. And Peter was the star. Peter was the lead actor. He was the guy that the producers brought in to sort of package the movie with. And Peter was interesting because when I first met him, he was really cool. He was really nice to me, and we kind of got along, and it was all kind of laughs and all good times. But then there was one night where Peter just started kind of disappearing.
okay.
He would kind of show up on set, and he'd go outside to smoke a cigarette, and then you would just lose him for 20, 30, 40 minutes at a time, sometimes an hour. To the point where my friend Nick Principe, actually, who was also working on that movie, was kind of brought on almost to be. I mean, Nick was working in the movie, but his secondary job was basically just to be the Peter Green handler on the
Right.
movie.
Right.
So there was one night specifically, and listen, was the guy on something Did I actually physically see it with my eyes, him take something? No. But, I've been around long enough to know that, like, this guy's behavior had just changed so fucking dramatically. And there was this one moment where I set up a shot. I had it all lined up. I had a conversation with Peter, and we were kind of rehearsing, and I think everything's going to be just fine. I think we're going to shoot this scene, and it's going to be great. And then about 45 minutes go by. It takes about that time, sometimes even an hour to, all right, we've blocked the scene, we've rehearsed. Now we've got to set the lights up. We're going to light it, and then we're going to go shoot it. So we start doing the scene, and I just wanted Peter to basically say a line a certain way. I wanted him to do the scene in a particular manner that we had kind of discussed. And then in the rehearsal, we get in there, and I ask him to do it as we rehearsed. And it's a scene where there's, it's like a hotel room, and there's two beds, and it's like the two main characters, and they're on their own bed, and they're having like a very emotional conversation about the situation. And I think I just wanted him to kind of like engage the other actor a little bit more. And he just says to me, he goes, "I'm not doing it, Tommy." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm so confused at this point. He goes, "I'm not doing it like that." And I'm just so shocked because in my mind, I'm like, well, we just, an hour ago, we had this whole conversation where you were with this idea. Now, all of a sudden, I'm running out of time. My day is about to wind down. I've got maybe an hour left on the clock before overtime kicks in.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me you're not going to do it? So I walk over to Peter, like just being playful. And I'm kind of just like, I just kind of walk over to him. And I'm like, "Hey, Peter, what are you talking about? We just talked about this." Totally friendly, totally calm. I'm not aggressive at all. Peter stands up and he says, "Get the fuck away from me, Tommy, or I'll knock you out."
Wow.
And I go, "What?" And I'm so taken aback that he said that. I think he's kidding. And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Peter?" I'm smiling. He looks me dead in the eye. He's a big guy. He's about 6'1",
Yeah.
6'2".
Yeah.
Looks me dead in the eye and says, "I said, come near me again, I'll knock you the fuck out." Like dead serious now.
Sure.
And now here's where I have to decide, what kind of man do I want to look like in front of my crew?
Oh,
How do
geez.
I want to handle this?
Yeah, there's
Now,
no
there's
good
not
answer.
there's not a lot of people in the room. It's
Right.
probably just like myself, the other actor, Peter, and there were these two grip guys. These two guys that I really became friendly with. And they were pretty, rugged, tough guys. So I said to myself, well, we got to make a move right here and now. So I looked Peter dead in the eyes. I didn't give up an inch. And I said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Peter. I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And if you throw a punch at me, I will break your fucking arm in front of this entire crew. And everybody
Wow.
will see it." And I just said it like that, dead in his eyes, like I was serious as a heart attack. And Peter backs down. He does this. He kind of drops his shoulders. He looks at me and he goes, "All right, let's just do the fucking scene, okay? Let's just do the fucking scene." And he takes the phone. There was like a phone on the bed. He like slams it down and he gets back on the bed. He's like, "Are you rolling? Let's fucking roll." So the bottom line is, I totally diffused the situation by lying to him because I am not a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be able to break his arm if he threw a punch at me, but he didn't fucking know that. And I didn't give up an inch, and I postured up to him. And in the back of my head, I said to myself, all right, if Peter throws a punch at me in this situation, I have a great story for the rest of my career, right? I have a fucking physical altercation on set with a crazy, most likely drunk, most likely drugged up lead actor in my movie.
Yeah.
And B, or two, I said to myself, I got these two grips right here. These are tough guys. We've been having beers every night and having fellowship. They got my back. Worst thing that's going to happen is Peter maybe punches me once. I grab him, and then we have what we call in the business a pull apart, where, several people run in and pull the two parties apart. So in my mind, I was like, all right, it's almost like a baseball fight, like a fight in baseball. Like, it's not going to get that fucking violent. It can't possibly get that bad. So I refuse to give up a fucking inch to him like that. And again, I know this is a show where we're trying to have teachable moments. I'm not saying that you should try to bring it to a physical place, but I do feel as though just person to person, if you feel threatened by an actor and they're threatening physical action on you, I think you have to let them know that, hey, buddy, work is work. But if you step into my personal zone, I'm going to fuck you up. Like, I'm going to defend myself. And I have to say, man, to Peter's credit, shortly thereafter, about 45 minutes after we finished the scene, oddly enough, it was one of Peter's best fucking scenes in the movie. He was really great in the scene. I loved everything he did.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you know, we kind of finish up our day. I don't say anything to him. I just walk off set when we wrap. There was no like me sticking my hand out to shake his hand. I was fucking pissed at that point. Like, you're
Sure.
gonna threaten to punch me in front of the crew because I'm trying to give you direction. That's,
Right.
by the way, why you got paid enough money to buy a brand new car to be here. Guy got paid enough money to buy a brand new fucking car just to be here for a couple weeks. You gonna try and fight me on
Right.
set over a note? So I wasn't about to take any of his shit, and I'm glad that I didn't take any of his shit. Um, and it's kind of funny. That night I went to bed or whatever, and I woke up, one of those weird, like you wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, and I had a voicemail from Peter Green. And the voicemail basically was this long, kind of droning voicemail where he basically was like, Tommy, I just want to say, I'm sorry, man. I give you a hard time because I really believe in you. And he compared me to Tarantino because, Peter Green was literally in Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite movies of all time.
He's
And he
Zed.
was like,
He
yeah,
was
he's
Zed.
fucking Zed.
Zed is. Well, just real quick, Tommy. I have a Peter Green inspired tattoo because I have a tattoo that says Zed is dead. And in the movie Pulp Fiction, when Bruce Willis defends the other actor there, the mobster guy from The Pimp and Zed, Peter Green plays Zed. Zed is dead, baby. Zed is dead. That's Peter Green you're talking about.
That's right. No, I mean, that's what I'm telling you guys. This guy, Peter Green, literally at one point in time was on a short list of like, ooh, this is going to be the next young 30 something movie star in Hollywood. And he fucked it all up. And it's behavior like the bullshit that I saw on set when he tried to fight me, which I can only imagine he's had situations like that in other movies. Because, Mike, you'll attest to this. You've been my best friend for a long time now. It's like, I'm not really a fighter. I'm
No,
certainly not a pushover. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to get pushed around, but I'm not an instigator. I'm not a physical guy. Like, I've been in like 2 fights in my whole life. And that's like, in high school when you're like on the football field, like in practice, like I'm not that guy, but he had to take it to that place. And I wasn't about to look like a bitch in front of my entire crew. And that's the way it went down. But I guess all in all, I guess what we learned there is, they say, what do you do with bullies, right? You got to stand up to them. Peter was being a bully, and I stood up to him. And what resulted in that was we got a great scene out of it. And somewhere in some fucking drunken state or whatever, at 3 or 4 in the morning, he sent me a voicemail and probably realized that he was not being the nicest guy on the planet.
I
And
think I
in the end, go ahead.
I think I interrupted your voicemail part of the story because you're kind of getting into the details of the voicemail. I think I jumped in, so I don't know if you want to go back to that.
Yeah, he just said in the voicemail, like, hey, man, I really believe in you, and I think you're really great. I've seen the best in the world do it. I've worked with Quentin. I see a lot of similarities between how you and Quentin work. And I was just like, yeah, man, that's really great. And look, maybe he meant it. Maybe he was just realized that he wasn't the nicest guy to me, and he was trying to make me feel a little bit better. But the bottom line is I didn't hold a grudge. We still had like a couple, 2, 3 days left to shoot. The next morning, I think we hugged it out. And it was really never kind of talked about again, except for there was one day, and I guess Nick Principe carried out my illusion that I was this tough brown belt in jiu-jitsu, because the next day he did come up to me and he's like, you're a tough motherfucker, huh? You're a tough motherfucker. You're brown belt, huh? Yeah, Nick was telling me. Yeah, he was telling me you train and stuff. Like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man. So like now all of a sudden I'm known on the set as this. I'm a fucking karate master. So that was pretty funny.
I do like and kudos to Nick for backing you up, and I think this is kind of like a compliment to your own acting, Tommy, because you thought on your feet. You were kind of like an improv dramatic jujitsu master, and Tommy, I'll be honest, buddy. I've never heard this story before, and I was on set. I was on set, or in the vicinity of the set for 8 days. And just to paint a little bit of the picture for everybody, this was in North Reading, Pennsylvania. This was in, I want to say, October of 2020. And this was in the beginnings of the pandemic, pre vaccine pandemic era. Small town
Right.
Pennsylvania, basically on the outskirts of where The Office was filmed, or The Office takes place, the TV show, right? And
That's
I mean,
right.
we're driving around, and I'm seeing signs for Allentown, Pennsylvania, like the Billy Joel song, and North Reading was really hit hard by the pandemic, and so this was a stressful time. You had to wear your mask on set every time. From my interactions with Peter, it was absolutely fine. He was nice to me. Before I left your set, I showed Peter the Zed is Dead tattoo. I was kind of on the fence of whether or not to show it to him, but he got a kick out of it. And I think it's a thing where, if I could just say this about Peter, I think he probably is a nice guy at heart. I think he probably did feel really bad about what happened. But I think you're right, Tommy. I think it's one of these things where he's got so much talent. Being on the edge like that probably lends itself into some of his acting, but for whatever reason, he hasn't totally conquered the demon that is some type of anger from his. And I have that too, man, from your past, from your childhood, from feeling neglected or feeling overlooked. Something
Well, look,
in his
I'm not
life.
trying to take anything away from your anger or neglect, but I think with Peter, the big issue there is substance abuse. But
Well, you're right.
that's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is. It's called don't be fucked up on set when you're working. Get fucked up after. Listen, I'm a free spirit. I don't care if you're higher than the fucking Empire State Building at the end of the day. As long as you show up to work on time, knock yourself out, kid. But when you bring that shit to set, I mean, like, that's when dangerous things happen.
Well, Tommy, I'll say this. I was on a set. This is a quick story, but kind of in this same substance abuse thing. I was on a set in New England. Let's just put it that way. And one of these, another kind of star who had fallen from grace, a star that actually reached, I would say, higher levels than Peter, like someone who was in those top 10 movies every year for a while as a featured player, a guy that was in Academy Award winning movies and so forth. But his star had fallen. He
Well,
had
who's the guy, Mikey? Tell us
I
who the
don't.
guy is.
Well, he's deceased, and I think it's a bit. It might be just he's dead
Oh,
now.
come on. Don't
You
tell the
want?
story without
Well,
just saying the
all right.
guy. Our end
Well,
action
then
listeners don't
then
want
for
to
the
hear
rec
about some mystery man, brother.
for the record,
Come on.
for the record, you forced it out of me, Tommy. I was trying to be discreet. It
Fuck
was
that.
it was Tom Sizemore.
Okay, we can talk about Tom.
Well, Tom has passed, and Tom was brought in as kind of like the big celebrity for this particular lower budget film, action film, basically based on the great acting that he's done in the past, right? I mean, we're talking about Saving Private Ryan, we're talking about Black Hawk Down, I believe. He's when he's on his game, he's a very intense, awesome actor. But bro, when and look, I was just more or less a glorified background guy on this production, but what I saw of him was a guy that should have been in a rehab at that exact moment. Like he, in my opinion, I went to the restroom on this set, and then Tom came in there, and I had no experience in this type of stuff, Tommy. But apparently, when someone's going through like a detoxification process, their body is really fucked up and making noises that are really scary. And I think it was just a thing, buddy, where, you know, I just don't think he should have been there. I think he should have been in a rehab situation. And sure, it's easy to say, as Stephen E does now, R.I.P. Tom. And like I said, I don't want to bury the guy; he's already deceased. But it was just really unfortunate, because when you see that talent ruined by these substances, and no one's got a gun to his head or anyone else's head to put something in your mouth or put something in your arm, so it is a matter of personal choice. But to me, buddy, it's a disrespect to the profession. It's a disrespect to the other people on set when when you've got people, production assistants, or sometimes volunteers, sometimes these are student volunteers that are working for free because they want to see what the business is like. And then, as the big star on campus, when you come in and you show them that the business is full of junkies and people that should be in recovery, I don't think that's good for the whole industry. And to me, it was really disappointing and tragic. And unfortunately, uh, Mr. Sizemore has passed on. So I hope his spirit is in a
Well,
better place and all that. But I just wasn't very impressed with what I saw.
let's spend a minute talking about Tom since you brought it up. Listen, I loved being around Tom Sizemore. I really did. I made probably I never directed Tom, but I've been in, I want to say, 3 movies working opposite Tom, and I've always enjoyed it. Tom and I got along really well. We were both big football fans. We were both, sports junkies. I hate to use the word sports junkie in that situation, but
Sure.
um, we spent a lot of time together. And for whatever reason, Tom and I really hit it off. And when we were on set, we were kind of set buddies. In fact, I think we might have done a deep dive on Tom Sizemore.
I think
I
we
think we
did.
did we did a whole Tom Sizemore episode. So if you're interested in hearing more about Tom and kind of some of my experiences, some of Mike's experiences, just type in "and action Tom Sizemore" into YouTube, and that episode will come back. I can't remember what the number was, but we did a really nice episode kind of paying homage to Tom. And the reality is, you're probably right, Mike. He probably wasn't in the right headspace to be on set. But I will say this about Tom in his defense. Obviously, addiction's a sickness, and he was dealing with some issues, but at least he was never physically or verbally abusive to anyone on set. Like, yeah, he might have had some timing issues, yeah, he might have been late at times, but when the camera was rolling, he was able to kind of do his job, and more importantly, not really overtly abuse anyone, or be mean to anyone. So,
Sure.
like, to me, and I'm not trying to compare the two, Peter and Tom, but it's like at least Tom was doing his thing. Like, I feel as though Tom was doing his thing to get through the day. I'm not saying Peter wasn't doing his thing to get through the day. It's just that Tom wasn't mean while he was using, and I think that that's kind of slightly the difference between those two. But R.I.P. Tom. I mean, listen, the bottom line is really just one of the most talented actors I've ever encountered, and it's tragic that some people kind of, uh, you know, find themselves off the path once in a while. And with Tom, he went as far off the path as he can.
Yeah, I mean, if you really need a clear illustration, I mean, at one point he was kind of insisting on wearing a T-shirt with another film's logo in it, and I didn't quite understand what he was doing. Like, hey man, you're in this movie now. Why are you insisting on wearing a T-shirt that promotes another project in the scene? And from what I
Well, now you're
understood,
just now you're just picking at Tom.
well, you insisted, buddy. You didn't want me to tell the story unless I drug his name through the mud. So here we go. But
No, I'm
I,
not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that, I remember that incident. He wanted to wear like a Batman t-shirt or a
it was a
Spider-Man t-shirt in the scene.
Jurassic Park T-shirt, and
Yeah.
I don't know, man. To me, it's like, hey, look, if
But I
that
don't
was
think he was doing that to promote a different movie. I think he was doing that because he thought that the character would have like a goofy t-shirt. You see what I'm
which,
saying?
yeah, but buddy, look, we both know that you don't promote a different movie than the movie that you're
I
in, and
don't
I
I don't know, man. I disagree with that 100%.
really,
How many times have you seen a movie where an actor's wearing a shirt for another movie? A lot. Like if a guy's wearing like a Star Wars shirt you don't see it a lot in independent movies because the bottom line is they don't have the licensing to do so. But I've seen that before where an actor's wearing a shirt for like a famous movie. You know what I mean?
to me, it felt like he was basically wishing that he was in the bigger production at that exact moment and not in this much smaller production. And he has no one to blame if he needed to blame someone than himself. But I don't know, buddy. We can
I don't
agree
know
to
about that one. I'm gonna have
we
to disagree with you. I don't think Tom was saying, "I wish I was in Jurassic Park. Let me wear this shirt." That doesn't make much sense to me. But um,
well, I was there, buddy. I mean, we all have our interpretations, but hey, buddy, you wanted a name. I gave you a name. I gave it up.
I think it's more this, Mike. I think sometimes actors just like to see what they can get away with,
Well, that's a
and I
great
think
point too.
something like requesting, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna wear this Jurassic Park T-shirt." I think that's just his way of seeing how far he can push. You know what I mean? Let's talk about another substance. Let's talk about the sneaky Pete of alcohol on set. Unfortunately, I've had the not so great pleasure of having to deal with some flat out drunks on set. Actors that need to hit that bottle. They need to shovel a couple coals on the fire to get it going in the morning. And one of those was kind of a disappointing scenario. This was working on my movie, which at the time we haven't done a deep dive on Vault. We will, I promise, when we're ready. We're not ready for it yet, but Vault at the time was my biggest movie, both in scope, size, cast, everything. And as a nice little piece of bonus casting, we brought in an actor by the name of Burt Young, who, if you don't know Burt Young, you probably better know him as Uncle Paulie in the Rocky movies, right? Everybody loves Uncle Paulie. Paulie was such a beloved character in that Rocky franchise. Really, really makes that movie special. I think. I think the Rocky franchise without Paulie just wouldn't be the fucking same. He added that element of blue collar realism, real deal family situations where he's the deadbeat brother, uncle, whose heart's in the right place, but he doesn't always make the right decisions. It's such a fucking relatable character. I mean,
Yes.
I think everybody has a person in their life that's like Uncle Paulie, where it's like, again, heart's in the right place, but if put in a position to make a decision, good or bad, it's a 50-50 chance that they're going to actually do the right thing.
Yeah, Uncle Paulie's iconic, and he's the one that actually introduces, I believe, Rocky till Adrian. Like he's the liaison in a sense, isn't he?
That's right. Yeah, you should talk to my sister. He says something like that.
She's kind of a retard. Take her to the zoo or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Whoa, no, he doesn't say that. We don't use that word on And Action, Mike.
Yeah. Well, it's quoting from the film, Tommy.
Right, but that's not a Paulie quote. That's actually Gazzo's guy, who's his driver, says that to Rocky, and Rocky 2, actually, I believe. I think it's the second one.
All right, very good. Very
Maybe
good.
it's the first one. Anyway, so I worked with Burt Young on set, and I was excited because he was in just to do a one-day thing. It's a small character, small part. He's going to come in and he's going to hit his handful of lines and get out of there. And I think we had him scheduled to be part of about a half a day. He was going to work a half a day. So if you're playing along at home, the average film day is 12 hours. A half a day is, he's going to be working for 6 hours, basically. Pretty fucking easy stuff, right? And he got paid a nice chunk of dough to come in and just work those 6 hours. Again, if you want to talk hourly rates, it's up there with like 1980s crack dealer money. That's how much money we're talking per hour. So he's making good money. He's coming in. He's literally just got to say like a handful of fucking lines and then be on his way. Well, in the morning, he shows up, and right off the bat, he's bleeding from his face, and he looks a little funny. And I'm like, what's the matter with this guy? Like, he's kind of like almost like on wobbly legs. Like he doesn't have his sea legs under him. And he sits down and he's bleeding, won't stop bleeding. Apparently, his handler told me that he cut himself shaving that morning.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, okay. Now, but here's the thing. It wouldn't stop. And that's because he was also drinking that morning, early in the day. And I'm not a doctor, but it's true that when you're drinking, your blood is thinner, and that if you're bleeding while you're drinking, or if you've been drinking and you have alcohol in your system and you're bleeding, it's going to have a tough time coagulating. You're not going to clot as easily if there's alcohol in your blood. So here we are. We got to put this guy in front of the camera. He's fucking bleeding. He's not really walking right, and he can barely speak, to be honest with you. Like his speech is just slurred all over the place. So we give him his lines, and it's a scene with Chaz Palminteri, and we're in the scene, we're doing our thing, and he can't come up with any of these lines. And I'm talking like there's not many lines of dialogue. It's a handful of lines. It would have been any actor worth their weight in gold would have been able to memorize it that morning over a cup of coffee. Like
Right.
it's not even like, oh, he should have done his homework. No, it's like a few fucking lines. You should be able to just pull that out of your ass if you're a professional actor getting paid all this money. So he can't do it. And Chaz is trying to help him through. You know, Chaz was such a saint. Like working with Chaz Palminteri, I wish I wish I could make every movie with Chaz Palminteri because he is not only the star, but he acts like it. You know, he
Right.
does his job, he does the work. He's great to be around on set. He's not wasted in the morning,
Yes.
walking onto set. So I had to change the scene. I had to rework it. I had to kind of put it on Chaz. When I say put it on, I mean put the camera on Chaz and just kind of cut away to Bert for these emotional moments. And I did the best that I could, but honestly, instead of like 4 or 5 lines of good dialogue, I think Bert's scene is condensed to like maybe he says 1 line or 2 lines, and it's really just like his face reacting. And it was just really disappointing, man. Because you know that scene took us hours to shoot when it really only should have taken an hour or 2. Now, here's where it gets worse. You think the story's over, it's not. So basically, we get through that scene. I had to change it so that Chaz did most of the work. And now there's one more scene outside where now this guy has to use a prop gun and shoot somebody. So he's been drinking all day. So, you know, I've been told by his handler that, you know, between scenes, they took him to a bar, which I don't know why they would have done that, but they took him to a bar. So now he had a couple drinks in between that scene and the one he's about to shoot, where he's handling a prop gun. Now, I know that prop guns are very sensitive right now, and they should be.
Right.
But just so everybody knows, the prop guns on the movie Vol were not, in fact, actual firing weapons. They didn't have blanks in them. They were prop guns that were made to basically, they were glorified cap guns. They were just made to make a pop. But still, it's still a situation where you've got to hand somebody a firearm, and it's still like you don't want to be doing that with drunk people. And really, the bigger part of it is the timing. You know, when you shoot in a scene, remember, if I got a fake gun, I got to mime out the recoil. Boom, right? Boom. Well, if it's set so that it's like a count where, okay, you fire, boom, and then the stunt person falls down from the shot. So it's like the stunt man will go 3, 2, 1, and then you go boom, and then that person knows to fall. Because if you don't time it out like that, your gun's going to go off, then the guy's going to fall too late, or your guy's going to fall, then the gun goes off. It'll just look like bullshit. So it had to be very timed out. And I'm saying to myself, how is this like drunken stumble bum of an actor gonna fucking get this timing right?
Yeah.
So of course we try it once. He's way the fuck off. It's like 3, 2. He goes on 2 instead of 3. Didn't work out. And then finally, I just scrapped it to the point where I was like, all right, we're not going to be able to get this timing to work. There's no way I'm going to get this guy to be able to fire and line it up perfectly with when the stunt person drops. So fuck it. We're going to scrap this. We're going to get just a close up of the gun going off. Then we're going to do a reveal of the body dropping. So again, this is 2 situations in the day now where I have had to re-engineer my entire process of filming these scenes because I have an actor who's frankly drunk on set and can't do his job. So that was really tricky. And it was tough, man. I remember being really upset by that one. And you know, you hate to say it. You know, I loved that Rocky Uncle Paulie character.
Yes.
And now every time I watch that movie, in the back of my head, I'm like, son of a bitch, you fucked me really good. Because the reality is, again, that was supposed to just be a 6-hour day. And I ended up going over that day. And what was supposed to take 6 hours ended up taking 10 or 11 hours. And it really hurt me, man. Like, there are other scenes where I wish, like, and by me, I mean the movie. Like, there are plenty of moments where I'm like, man, I wish I had another 4 hours to shoot this scene. Instead, I'm chasing around a drunken elderly actor on set. when he should be just on point because he's getting fucking damn well paid to be here. So that was frustrating. And again, we're trying to have these be teachable moments. I guess, when you see something like that happening, I guess in hindsight, when I saw the kind of conditions in early, I probably should have just went to my producers right off the bat and been like, this guy ain't cutting the mustard. There's nothing
Right.
I can do with him. And I'm gonna cut his scenes. Like I'm gonna just cut the scene. What else can we shoot today? Rather than spending 6 hours on this scene and then 4 hours on this scene when both of them kind of ended up being shitty. I kind of would have just been like, all right, what's up on the schedule tomorrow that we can get today? Because this just ain't working out. And that took me a long time as a filmmaker, but you got to learn when to cut your losses and when to just be like, okay, this scene is not working to the best of our abilities. We can't get it to be great. And you don't want scenes that are just good or okay. So it's like if your scene's not going to be great, just fucking cut it. And I wish I learned that earlier in my career, but now you all can learn that from me. If the scene's not fucking outstanding, guess what? The audience hasn't seen it. They're not going to fucking miss it if you get rid of it. Only put the good shit out there.
Well, Tommy, that's a lot of lessons right there. And I think for potential or actors, this is a great show because you can see that people don't forget stuff. Here we are talking about something, from 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. We both have pretty good memories of because when they say that film is a collaborative medium, it reminds me of that other expression that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And in some of these situations, some of these star actors are proving to be the weakest link in these scenarios. And although we'd like to kind of balance the conversation and say, yeah, but they're a great guy or they had a great career and all that good stuff, at the end of the day, they're causing other people trauma and causing the production to lessen its value. And if some of these actors are wondering why their careers are not what they once were, it's because people aren't calling them to do another gig. Once you've been burned by someone in these situations, like you said, Tommy, here you are trying to enjoy Rocky years later. And because of what you experienced with this gentleman on your set, it pisses you off. And so people in the film industry can be forgiving and all that good stuff. But if you're causing someone money, and in my opinion, even more so, the artistic vision of the film is being compromised because someone doesn't have their shit together, then don't expect to have the best of careers and don't expect people to lovingly gloss over your errors because you're not so talented that you can't be replaced. Another ass will fill your seat.
It's true, Mike. And, there have been far too many actors in the business that are in that range. I hate to even categorize people in this box, but you hear of like the B-list actors or the C-list actors, the kind of actors that are in these smaller films that you use to kind of sell that, I hate to say it, but it's like, okay, actors that were popular 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but now they're on the downslope. However, they still have an audience. However, they still have some name bankability. And those are the people that you're dealing with. And more often than not, when I have an issue like this with an actor, I say to myself, like, well, okay, this makes a lot of sense now. Again, I don't mean to pick on Peter Green, and I hope he's in a better place now than he was a few years ago. I hope he's doing well. I really mean that. But when you see that kind of behavior, you say to yourself, that's why you never became the big movie star that you were supposed to, because it's not the talent. Again, the guy has the talent. Same thing like Sizemore. I'll tell you, and I've heard this from many actors that I've worked with, like pound for pound, Tom Sizemore was one of the best actors to walk the face of the earth. Like if we're just talking about acting ability,
Yes,
there weren't too many people better than him.
that's
But it
true.
goes to show you, like you could be the best ball player in the world, but if you have issues, it's going to take away from your talent. Len Bias, the great basketball player who, died of a cocaine overdose before he became an NBA star. So it's like, we see this in other facets of life. It's not just actors, but there's nothing worse than seeing talent go to waste due to a substance issue. And again, I know it's an issue. I know it's addiction. I know it's not something that, these people don't want to act like this. They can't help it. I just hope that, they seek the help that they need to get better because I have seen people bounce back from this. I have seen people get better. I don't want to put his business out in the street. The big shout out to actor Jason London, who I worked with Jason London on. I directed him in a movie called Mr. Birthday. And he was going through some trouble at the time, dealing with some demons, some alcohol issues. And he's been sober now for almost a year and he's doing really well. And it's great to see that. It's great to see like the other side of it when somebody realizes, like, you know what? Because Jason's a super talented guy, he's a terrific actor. And I think that shit was jamming him up. And now he's clean and sober for a year and he's thriving. And so there can be success stories to that. And we wish everybody nothing but the best who is battling something like that, because you can come back, but it's definitely gonna fuck your shit up if you're trying to work while you're under the influence.
And I had the opportunity to meet Jason London and his wife on that set of Mr. Birthday, and his wife was a wonderful lady, and Jason was very nice to me, and he was very solid in Mr. Birthday and very lovable as the single dad character. So I'm happy for him. And Tommy, it's one of these things, buddy, where the entertainment world is so many characters that people come in. Your situation with someone might be different than someone else's situation. My observances of Tom Sizemore in that case were not nearly as close as you were to him, but it's just interesting how different people can have different perspectives of situations. That's why, as an actor with an elevated career or with more opportunities, comes higher responsibility. So, for the people that are trying to get somewhere with acting, this shows a good lesson. Like, you got to keep your shit straight, and if you have issues with whatever, keep them off the set, because you'd hate for your offset issues to interfere with your career and affect people in a negative manner, so that they end up with these stories about you.
Well, there's no question about it, Mike. Not to sound corny, but it's like, the star of the movie is like a leader in the locker room, to use a sports reference. So if the other actors see the star complaining and acting cranky or being fucked up or whatever, that shit trickles down to the rest of the movie, because then the other actors say, well, why can't I be fucked up? Why can't I complain about something? Why can't I piss and moan about every little thing? So it's just, yeah, it starts at the top. And, I guess you got to be aware of this stuff when you're getting into situations. That's why when you're casting an actor, and here's something that I don't think enough people do. When you're casting an actor, go on IMDb and look up the last couple movies that they've been in and try to reach out to one of those producers or try to reach out to the director and say, hey, I noticed you just worked with so-and-so. I'm thinking about casting in my movie. Is there anything I should know about them? Again, like in any other job, getting a reference from a previous employer is not a crazy thing at all, right? We think of that as fairly commonplace. So, don't be afraid to use some of your connections, even if it is locally. Be like, hey, you just did a short film with this guy. Was it good? Did you have a good experience? And, listen, take that with a grain of salt too, because everyone's going to have different experiences. But if you ask 3 or 4 people and 3 or 4 people say that they had an issue with the person's probably an issue. So, ask around. And guys, we're almost out of time here. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel. We love coming at you every Tuesday at 11 a.m. We're going to keep that going until one of us gets a job that, requires us to be there on a Tuesday. I know right now for me, all I've got going on is I'm writing a very exciting script that I'm super thrilled about. I'm finishing the movie I made in Mississippi. I'm finishing the movie that I directed here in Rhode Island, the Lifetime movie. There's a lot coming out. We've got The Florist coming out. If you haven't checked it out, please check out that trailer, share it, tell your friends about it. Go on my Patreon, join that up for free. Eventually, The Florist will be available on Patreon for $1.99 for $2, guys. You can't even buy a fucking cup of coffee for that anymore. So for $2, you can watch The Florist. That's going to be coming out in May. And we had a nice time kind of talking about. I'm a little triggered, Mike. These have been some traumatic incidents that we talked about today.
We triggered each other, buddy, or we triggered our memories. I do want to tell one anecdote. I'll make it quick because I feel like we kind of talked about some of these bigger productions, and in a smaller sense, there's a local actress that I've worked with, and I've suggested her for other people. She's very talented. I'm not going to name names on this one, but what I've experienced with her twice, once on my own production, and once I heard a report back from someone who I suggested her to their production, and I got a very similar story, Tommy. It's that you go to, I, in this case, go to this person with an opportunity, not even asking them to audition, basically giving them a role. Initially,
Mhm.
it's very much excited, happy, thankful, grateful, all those like nice, responses you would want to get from someone. Cast the person, and then the production starts, and there's some thing like some scheduling issue, or I can't really be there for that rehearsal. Can we rearrange the rehearsing process? Some type of thing where this particular actress like is a pain in the ass, like on the second part of the story, right? And then you work through that situation and kind of come out of it okay, but still kind of having a little residual feelings about it. And then the actress does the work. It's awesome. And then she's very thankful and appreciative once again. So she has this little pattern where she starts off wonderful to work with, has her issue with something, and then at the end, she's great again. And it's a very strange thing because that happened twice, once in my thing and once with someone else's thing who gave me a very similar report. And I'm just thinking, what's going on here? Because I'd like to think that this actress is always awesome and great and appreciative and easy to work with, but in both scenarios, there's like a mid-project bump in the road. And I'm thinking, is this some type of psychological pattern? Is this some type of way where she's testing the project to see how much she can get away with? What
I don't
is
know, Mike. This is a very vague story. It's hard for me to weigh in on it.
I don't want to give names because the person's still active, still considered a friend of mine, and I still recommend her. But the pattern is simply you cast this person, she's very happy to get cast. Then the project begins, and there's some type of glitch where she has to be trying to reschedule the whole thing or something. And then at the end of it, she's all happy and nice again. So it's like this little roller coaster that
Yeah,
you go on with this
unless
lady.
it's Meryl Streep, brother, I would cut that woman loose. Who needs that?
Well,
Who needs it?
I think the thing
Cut
that
him loose.
I'm trying to get at with this is if she's listening, or if anyone else sees themselves in that story, if you see yourself in that story of, hey, I want to work, I'm happy to get the job, and then I have to be a little, diva or a little pain in the ass or a little self-centered, and have my little outburst to get the attention, and then I turn back and be all nice again. Don't put people through that. There's no reason to put the director, the producer, whoever through that scenario, no matter what the budget or the scope of the project, because ultimately you're hurting yourself in your own career.
I'd say that falls under the category of being an unruly actor, and we don't deal with that shit. And nobody's going to deal with it. Mike's point is well taken. Remember, you're going to get a little cranky sometimes on set, on any creative venture, any kind of team exercise where you've got multiple people to work with. It ain't a solo sport. So if you find yourself being a little cranky pants or maybe being a little difficult, maybe just take a breath and step back from the situation and realize that as long as you're not being physically, verbally, mentally abused, roll with the punches a little bit. We're making movies here. We're not performing open heart surgery. Everything's going to be okay. It's not life or death. Um, I hope everyone had an awesome time with us today. I know I did, getting some of this off of my chest. I have a crazy week coming up. We're about to shoot Vincent Pastor's on camera segments for my new documentary, The Heart of Knightsville, which is coming out sometime next year. So it's just like all systems go. And I can't wait to get through this week, because once I'm through this week, I got nothing to worry about but writing pretty much between now and June, when it looks like I'll be directing another movie. So looking forward to the month of May. Just a creative sunny days on the porch, cranking out pages here. As always, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Turn your notifications bell on. And if you haven't already, be on the lookout for my Patreon channel, Patreon page, where we're going to start really pumping a lot of content out there, guys. Self-distribution is the means of the future. Real quick shout out to Vinny, who's been hanging with us today. Steve, it's a pleasure, brother. Ariana Pacheco says the lead actor definitely sets the tone for everyone else. That's a fact. Kim, what's up, Kim Kaling? Hi, everyone. I was driving and couldn't comment. Great to see you, Mikey. Glad I could break away from my daughter's dance camp. I feel younger. Well, we always love chatting with you, Kim, and drive safe wherever you're headed. And thanks for tuning in. We will see you next Tuesday at 11 a.m. for some more and action fun. And in the meantime, enjoy your weeks. Enjoy this beautiful spring weather. And we hope to see you real soon.